All right, this time on the final review, we're going over the one, the only, the sequel, Spider-Man 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 to be precise. Obviously, this game came out last week, and I talked about it quite a bit last week, but of course, I wasn't all the way finished with it when I was talking about it. But by the time that Monday rolled, or maybe it was Tuesday rolled around, um, maybe it was Wednesday. My timetable's all out of whack. I apologize. But you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about the game. Yes, I did finish Spider-Man 2. I platinumed the game, did the 100%, and I still had a lot of fun with it, even though there wasn't really much to do after the 100%. I kind of just ran around and did some of the the crime encounters and stuff like that. So, what you may be wondering before I get going, how much of the game is Yemmy going to spoil? And I will tell you that I'm going to spoil quite a lot of the game throughout this because I do need to touch on specific things at points. But I will let you all know before I get into spoilers, just in case someone is listening to this and doesn't want the full game fully spoiled. They just want a general vibe, overall vibe of the game. I will let you know when spoilers are coming, and I will mark it in timestamps below when the spoilers start. If you want to check that out and skip to the section past the spoilers. So right off the bat, um, Spider-Man 2 is a really good game. A borderline excellent kind of game. There is a lot to really like and love about Spider-Man 2. Not only does it build off of its other games in the series, Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, but it also adds a bunch of new features unique to Spider-Man 2, including the how they changed up the gadgets, how they work. They changed up kind of how the special moves work as well. They changed up the combo meter and how you heal a little bit, or how you use the focus bar, I will say. They did a few little tweaks, and they also did some major tweaks. One of the things that I really never got used to was the new way you use gadgets. Essentially, you hold down R1 and then you press one of the face buttons: triangle, square, cross, or O. And each one kind of has a different, um, gadget attached to it. So one of them is like a web grabber that grabs enemies around it and it will pull it towards them, pulls them together, so you can kind of wail on them all at the same time, I suppose, or do whatever. Maybe line them up for a powerful attack from your special abilities. There's also the one that's like a concussive blast that stuns most enemies. It becomes way more useful later on. Um, so things that would automatically knock out enemies, like the impact web shooter, the grenade, those are gone from the game. Even though you still can knock out some thugs with the gadgets, it's not going to be as consistent as it was for things like the impact web shooter, which was obviously overpowered in both Miles Morales and in the regular Spider-Man game, of course, because you could literally just attach almost any enemy type to a wall without even blinking, essentially. Um, and I don't mind that they took those things out, but I do prefer having that gadget wheel to choose things from. Without that wheel, it just kind of becomes I forget about it. I don't know if that's the same for everyone, but I really didn't use gadgets for most of my playthrough up until the final section of the game when they actually became useful. I tried to use them as much as I could remember to use them, but for the most part, I was using my special moves and my regular attacks, and I got through the game just fine, honestly. But yeah, that's another thing that they changed about the game is that you have these special abilities on your controller. So you hold down L1 and use one of the face buttons, and there's like four different special moves you can use. And as you go through the game, of course, you get upgraded versions of those moves. So obviously, no spoilers, but some of them get pretty cool as you go through the game, and I really liked a lot of the those moves. I mean, I would use them so often simply because, like, yeah, they're cool to watch Spider-Man and Miles. Well, I should say Peter and Miles use the moves. It's really great. Of course, the biggest change is being able to play as either Peter or Miles in this game. We knew that going into, you know, since Miles Morales, we kind of figured, yeah, they're probably going to do a sequel that has them both in there. And I think for the most part, it works pretty well, pretty seamlessly. Of course, through story bits, they will switch between Peter and Miles for you, or you can pull up the phone app and switch on your own. And it's pretty seamless. The switch is pretty seamless. Usually, Peter or Miles is in relatively the same area as the other character. So when you switch over, you're going to be relatively around the same area you were. So if you were doing some side missions, and some side missions require only Miles or can be done by only Peter, and you just want to switch over real quickly, it's super quick. It takes a fraction of a second to load in, which is, of course, one of the big selling points of this game is just how fast things load. I mean, when you fast travel, they literally have Peter or Miles swinging in on a street in seconds, I would say. It takes a little bit longer than you would think, but it's still like, I mean, a couple seconds versus minutes loading, like in the original Spider-Man game or Miles Morales, is definitely a step up from, it's definitely a step up, I should say. And load times on the PS5. I mean, they really should. I mean, it's no spoiler to say that the load times on the PS5 make this game way more smoother, way more congealed. Because instead of having to sit through a loading screen and go around that loading screen and have to wait for the stuff to load, and then instead of doing that, you just get a quick animation of Peter or Miles swinging in or flying in, because the new spider wings are one of the first things you use when you boot up the game. They give you the spider wings pretty early on, and those are actually really well done. They are not like super overpowered. You still need to use your swinging and web zipping and stuff like that, but with the wings, you can travel more ground quicker, but you will still need to either catch gusts of winds to keep up in the air, or when you get low, you can start to swing again. And I found myself using a pretty healthy mix of the two. I didn't only use web wings, and I didn't only use swinging. I think I majorly used swinging, especially during the sections where I was pretty much just hunting for side content, obviously. But yeah, I think the web wings work really well in this game, and I don't think that they distract you from the awesome swinging that is in it. And the cool thing about the swinging is that both Miles and Peter have different styles of swinging, and then also certain costumes that you can unlock for them, certain suits you can unlock for them, also have unique styles for swinging and combat and stuff like that. So that's also pretty cool how they did that, and that is going above and beyond. Of course, that's going above and beyond. So let's say you get one of the first suits you can unlock for Peter is this one that kind of looks like a Ronin from Ghost of Tsushima, or of course, feudal times in Japan. And he just has like this unique fight style, this unique swinging style that's different from any of the other ones there. And then Miles also has a similar thing with his Into the Spider-Verse outfit. Obviously, he has he has a unique style for like how his character looks. He runs at a lower frame rate and stuff like that, which is awesome to see in like a game like this. And also he has like some unique moves and stuff like that to his character as well, that when he's using that suit. And that's like the little things that you want to see. It's not something that everyone's going to notice per se, but it's something that if you're paying attention, you can pick up on it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool that they did that. They designed like a whole new swinging animation for this one suit for no particular reason other than it's a cool suit and they wanted to do something special for it, I guess. I will say with the suits, there are a ton that are from the first game and the Miles Morales game, which I don't mind exactly, but when I see some of the more I wouldn't say ugly, but some of the suits that I didn't really like from those games come back, and you have to unlock them with your tokens and stuff like that. It's just you feel like there could have been a different suit in this spot, or I mean, obviously they're not going to have all the suits unlocked from the get-go, but maybe have a couple of those suits that were from the original game, like the original Miles Morales suit, or the original Peter Parker suit, or the original anti-Ock suit from the first game. Maybe have those just unlocked in general so you don't have to re-unlock them. It's so weird how this game does its suits, because you know, you like the first suit you start off with is like the Spider-Man 2 suit, the new version of it. But you can also unlock the damaged version of the suit, the original suit from the first game, the original suit from the first game. There's so many suits that are just like the same kind of template that don't really make a difference, especially on Peter's side. I feel like Miles has more varied suits. Peter's are really similar in a lot of ways, and it's kind of just annoying to be like, oh well, I guess I'll use, I don't know, the suit from the first game for a little bit, and then I'll use the suit from this game for a little. It's a weird thing. But one of the other things that I do like about the suits is how you can unlock 3 different variants on top of the original suit that you unlock. So not only do you get the suit, but you also get 3 variants of the suit once you unlock that. And a lot of the variants were pretty cool. A lot of the color palettes that were swapped out were not too bad. I actually liked them better than the original ones. So I do appreciate that they have a plethora of different ideas floating around in there. Obviously, the different color palettes don't really change the suits that much, but sometimes it just looks better in general. Like there was a suit for Miles that kind of reminded me of it was the suit from the Miles Morales game that it was the Prowler kind of looking suit. And in this one they have 3 different variants for the original suit. And that one of the variants was like a black and purple or something, or like a neon green and purple or something like that. And it was really cool. I liked it way better than the original version. And that's kind of how it kind of went for most of the most of the suits, where it's like, okay, unlock the base of the suit, but the rest of the other 3 variants look better, so I'm going to choose one of the variants. And of course, not all suits have variants. A lot of the movie suits or things based on properties don't have different suits, so some of them don't have that, but a lot of them do. A lot of them have the different variants that you can unlock, and of course, I actually preferred a lot of the variants to the original suits. So there you go. Some points during the game, you get specific suits for the character that you can't change out. So just be wary of that. If you were wearing a suit that you don't like, and maybe just switch it out before you do the next mission, something like that. There's one suit. One of my favorite suits for Miles came from a side mission where you collect some instruments. Obviously, not really a spoiler. Didn't really give away anything there. But the outfit you get for that one is really cool. I really liked it. It was like I'm not gonna say, but it was a really cool suit. I really liked it. I really liked the style. And of course, Peter has some good suits as well. There's one where you can unlock the Spider-Man Noir costume. Nick Cage played Spider-Man Noir in the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and yeah, it's fun to play as that version of the character. Obviously, his voice doesn't change, but it's still a pretty cool suit to unlock. It's one of my favorites in there. Another thing that they kept up from the first game is a plethora of side content along with the main missions. So after you're done with the main mission, usually you get a new side mission unlocked for almost like every other main mission. It seems like at some points. Different from the first game, not every side mission played the same way. The first game had a lot of like hideouts to take out, like the demon hideout, the kingpin hideouts. You had to do, or the Sable hideouts too. You had to do those all, and they were all relatively the same, where you just beat up a bunch of goons and leave. You start in stealth and then you beat up a bunch of goons and leave. And this game does this. I think that this game does the side content better in a way, where not every side mission feels like it's the same thing. So you start off with like, finding these caches, and then you take pictures of specific things. New Yorkers doing specific things instead of just having thousands of pictures to take. They're set up in a way that's like, it's kind of cool. You take a picture of like the daily life of a New Yorker, right, and you send it to the Daily Bugle. So that was kind of cool. There's other ones like finding these little spider drones, which I talked about last week. I love the look of most of these spider drones, and the finale for that side mission is really cool. Like really, really cool. Like if you're a fan of Spider-Man and Spider-Man games, you're gonna love the ending of that mission. Also, if you're a fan of Spider-Man movies in general, you're gonna love the end of that mission. It's really cool. Of course, like there's like these ones that are like almost like the hideouts where you attack a couple of Kraven's goons, and then you can triangulate where a base is, which is kind of different from the first game because you're doing 3 bases and then taking out one big base, and you have like the ability to take out some things from the enemy before they call it in. Sometimes it seems to be a little bit weird because you can take out like the reinforcements call in thing, but then they still call in reinforcements sometimes, which might just be the guys around the area. I don't remember, but yeah, it was just kind of weird how sometimes the reinforcements would still show up, or like the thing that you took out would still do something every so often. It's kind of weird. Um, my least favorite side mission was probably the one where you chase around the drones in the city. It really just played itself, honestly. Like, you still had the guide. Like, essentially, when you're wearing the web wings, you have to. If you want to like get a burst of speed, you go through these wind tunnels. And it was pretty much just like going through a wind tunnel, following this drone, dodging some of their attacks, but not really dodging, you know. And it just took a little bit too long, in my opinion. And it was just one of those things. It's like, oh, I have to do like 10 of these. It was not the most fun side mission ever. And the ending for the side mission really wasn't that great either. And I will say, a lot of the side missions end with cliffhangers, which is not my favorite thing ever, especially because, like, we obviously, obviously there's going to be some cliffhangers here and there because they're trying to set up for either the next game or some DLC. But I feel like at least 3 or 4 side missions ended with like, oh, here's a cliffhanger for the DLC. Like, ooh. And I just was like, by the time like the third, I think like 3 of them, the third one came around, I was like, I really just want like an ending to this storyline. Like, I don't feel like it needs DLC. I feel like we could just have an ending to the storyline, but nope, can't do that. And I think that's one of the things that kind of drags the game down a little bit is this idea that like, oh, we're just gonna set up a bunch of DLC stuff in these side missions. Obviously, the main story gets a nice bow on it at the end, but like I would say 3 out of the 5 or 6 side mission activities, maybe even 4, have like oh, here's a hint at what the DLC is going to be, or oh, here's a hint at maybe what we're going to bring it back in the next game or something like that. And I really don't like that. At least the original game and Miles Morales, like the ending of the side missions and stuff, most of them were concrete, and it was kind of a surprise to have one that didn't end in a concrete resolution. And in Spider-Man 2, I feel like, yeah, maybe we could just end most of them with a concrete ending, and then, you know, like the Path of the Embers one, the side mission that you do with Wrath or Wraith, whatever her name is. I feel like that one, like, sure, yeah, that one can be the setup for the DLC, but have an actual finisher on a couple of these other ones that you don't, you know. But like I said before, though, the side missions actually seem to be worth. Like they had a good amount of variety in them, so it wasn't just doing the same thing over and over again, which I do appreciate. Another thing about the game is it is a bit. I don't know if glitchy is the right word. It just has some moments that things happen that yeah, sure, it's a bit glitchy. I'm trying to think of a better word for it, but like I guess it's like a game breaking like a screen will freeze. It froze on me once where I was just doing a swing into an enemy, and I think I got trapped inside of a telephone pole or something like that, and I was stuck, and I had to restart the checkpoint, which isn't too bad, seeing as the checkpoints are pretty generous. But I think I had 3 times by the time that I was done with everything that I had to restart the game because it froze on me or it didn't allow me to do anything when a prompt came up, which is kind of annoying. And I know that Greedy Waffles mentioned to me that like one of the spider drones didn't show up. He had to restart his game for the spider drone to show up, which is just kind of like sloppy, I guess. Maybe not sloppy, but it needed, I guess, a little bit more polish to it here and there. I seem to only get like the part where like the things that I couldn't like all of a sudden I couldn't like control my character, like I was stuck with a prompt on the screen. Seemed to only happen when new moves were getting introduced, and it happened like 3 times, which is kind of unfortunate. I guess the one time I sat on a bench and I couldn't move and the dialogue didn't play, which seems to be a pretty wide reachy one, seeing as also Greedy also had that one. I think Coco also had that one as well. So Just needed to clean it up a little bit more. Other than that, though, I really didn't have too many glitches. I mean, obviously, there's going to be that random ragdoll that a thug does. That's kind of weird, but I don't really see those as glitches. You know, it's just maybe a little bit of a not a game breaker, but it takes you out of the game a little bit. You know. Um, Other than that, I didn't really have any glitches per se. Just those times I had to restart. So all in all, it's not terrible with glitches. Like it's not on the same level as like Redfall or Jedi Survivor, but it's still enough of a pain to make me go, I wish that they had maybe quality assured this a little bit more, quality tested this a little bit more, just to make sure it was working perfectly. The nice thing is though that the graphically it's pretty good. I don't think that the rendering time was bad. I think that most things rendered pretty quickly, or they were already rendered by the time that I saw that a cutscene started. I think that in general the graphics look good, facial animations are pretty good, characters themselves look good, environments, New York itself looks great. So all in all, I think it's a great looking game. Maybe not as good as some of the other games that have come out this year, like Lies of P or, um, even Alan Wake 2, which I'll talk about later in the episode. But it's still a good-looking game. It's not like it's bad. It's a good-looking game. Voice acting is good in the game as well. Enjoy that. Yeah. So other than that, there's a new parry system in the game that takes a lot of time to get used to because I don't know about you, but after just playing the original Spider-Man game before playing Spider-Man 2, it's so difficult not to just automatically press the dodge button for every single attack. So what I did is I actually forced myself to parry everything so I got used to pressing the button when an attack prompt came up. And I think the weird thing is that you have to use a parry to take out most like the big brute thugs or the bigger enemies. Which I don't know. It's fine, but I do like the idea of the first game having multiple ways to assess a situation and take enemies out. Like, sure, yeah, you can still web up a big thug, but it's not as effective as doing the parry and then getting a couple hits in and then doing another parry and getting another couple hits in. In the first game and in Miles Morales, you could use gadgets to help you out. You could use your own moves to help you out. And this one, it seems like it's very like, oh, you have to use a parry or you're going to get hit or you're going to get punished, which is not my favorite thing ever. I feel like keeping the game open for you to do what you want to do in a combat scenario is one of the main reasons why Spider-Man and Miles Morales works so well. And it's not like the combat's bad in this game, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just there's some things that I wish were more flowing like that, like that idea of not having to parry the brutes to get hits in, just be having parrying being a tool for you would have been better than having it be a crutch to use. Um, let's see. Other than that, upgrade system works pretty much the same as the first game, except that you have the three different tiers. So one is just Miles, one is just Peter, and one is them combined. Strangely enough, you got to unlock a lot of the similar moves from the first game in Miles Morales, which I applauded Jedi Survivor because you pretty much start that game with all your base moveset intact from the first game, and they didn't do that with Spider-Man. So I mean, it's not a terrible thing because you do earn XP pretty fast, but it's one of those things. It's like I really shouldn't have to be relearning how to web up someone and then throw them. Like that seems like a pretty basic thing that should be in the game from the get-go. I feel like that shouldn't be something that I need to relearn in the game. Yeah. I think that's all I want to talk about in the non-spoiler section. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to spoilers. I'm going to mark it down in the description. And if you want to skip the spoilers, just head over to what have I been playing this past week in the timestamps. So let's go ahead and start the spoiler discussion. All right, so let's talk about the story. It starts you off, you're fighting Sandman with Miles. It's one of the best openings to a game that I can think of in recent years. Better than the first game, better than Miles Morales' opener for sure. It's definitely like one of those opening sequences that really sets the game up with a high barrier that it's got to be tough to get back to that, right? Like, you're doing this big fight with a giant Sandman. It's spanning New York City. You're fighting these little like Clayface type minions that pop up out of the sand. Um, and you're pouring water on him. It's a very interesting boss fight because it's not just punch him in the face a bunch of times. It's like, okay, pull down this water thing or throw this water at him and then punch him in the face a couple times, right? And that it really hypes you up for the rest of the game. It really opens up the game with a great starter that just kind of keeps going from there. It just kind of starts snowballing from there. They have bigger and bigger set pieces that really makes this game stand apart from the other Spider-Man games of recent years. The game just seems to have a banger level after banger level here and there. Of course, there's still those levels that are just kind of more basic, but I would say that like out of all the levels, I would say it's more than 50% that have like a segment that I went, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Just to start off, there's this whole chase with Black Cat where you're chasing her and she has like this portal thing from Doctor Strange that she stole. And it's just one of those sections that's like really cool. You're going in and out of portals. And it's kind of like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart in a way where the SSD is loading so fast you can go through a portal and be sent out somewhere completely different in like a snap of a finger. The same thing happens when you go into the Mysteriums. You can, of course, it's a little bit more blatant that they're loading a new area when you walk into it, but it's still a pretty cool illusion. But yeah, that Black Cat chase was like one of those great parts of the game that I really liked. I thought that was a really fantastic one. Of course, the lizard trailing thing that they showed off during a state of play was pretty cool to play. It was a little bit too short in my opinion, but it was cool to kind of go from boat to boat while they were chasing lizard. Also, the part before that was a bit more horror themed, I would say, which was pretty cool. There's a whole fight with Peter and Harry. They both are fighting Craven, and there's like this whole really great sequence that like is really an emotional roller coaster where Peter almost dies and Harry gives him the suit in order to help him survive. But now, of course, Harry is succumbing to his sickness because he gave the suit to Peter. So that's a big yin and yang thing right there. There's like this massive fight inside of the Emily, fuck, Emily May Foundation that is pretty bombastic. Really love that early on. And I would say after the part where Harry gives Peter the symbiote suit, that was one of the best parts of the game is when you're first using that symbiote suit and you're just crushing through enemies with these new special abilities and like this crazy stuff. It was awesome. It was really cool. Eventually, through story mechanics, you play as Venom. You actually play as Venom for like a mission and a half, which was really cool. Like I really loved that. This game has to be one of the best depictions of Venom that I've seen in popular media for quite some time. It's definitely one of those characters that has, I mean, because they're so popular, they show up so often in media, especially in comic books and stuff like that. So it's one of the things that's like, yeah, they definitely utilize him really well in this game. And Kraven too. I feel like that final fight with Kraven between Venom and Kraven was amazing. I would say that's probably my favorite boss fight in the game because it was so cool and unique. But like the other fights in the game for boss fight wise, I felt like a lot of them just resorted to just punch, dodge, punch, parry, dodge, punch. And I feel like in the first game, when you played the first game, a lot of the fights didn't go that way. There was that whole section with Rhino and Scorpion where you're trying to knock things down onto Rhino while dodging Scorpion's attacks. And then also the fight with what's the guy's, the Pounder or whatever his name is? I forget his name right now. He's the one with like the gold suit, the Shocker, that's his name. Like that one was pretty cool because you were like jumping out of the way of his attacks and stuff like that. Each fight in the first game was pretty original for a boss fight. And in Spider-Man 2, I feel like a lot of it just resorts to punching and then dodging and then punching and then dodging and then using a special ability and punching and dodging. And I really felt like the characters that you were fighting were out of this world amazingly designed. Like Lizard and Venom and Kraven and any character you can think of that you fought during this game had such a great design, and like I thought that the boss fight was going to be something so cool, but then it ended up just kind of being mediocre in a way where it's like it really wasn't as special as I thought it was going to be. Like the lizard fight is a big one in my opinion, because you have this giant lizard and all you're pretty much doing is punching him, and then sometimes he goes up onto the wall and you web him and he falls down and you punch him, and there's these little things that can give you a boost, and you have to grab onto them, pull them up. But other than that, it was just kind of like, wow, just kind of like a basic fight, huh? And the ending fight with Venom, the same thing. It was a very basic fight, you know. I'm thinking of the final fight with Doc Ock, and even though it's not the most amazing boss fight ever, I will say at least it has some unique things going for it that was separate from the rest of the boss fights that you do in the game. By, you're swinging around this tower while the floor is electrocuted, you're throwing things back at him, then you're beating him up on the ground and webbing up his different legs or arms. Like that's unique, but in Spider-Man 2, I just feel like so many of the boss fights just devolve into just punch a bunch and then dodge a couple times and punch a bunch. And there's seemingly multiple stages to these fights, but I can't remember personally the next stage of the fight. They get a refresh of health bar. I don't remember them having too many unique moves that occurred after that. Like maybe they added like one move and then the rest was the same. There's a fight with Screamer later on. Mary Jane gets infected with the symbiote, which is a cool fight, but it just evolved into me kicking its ass because I knew how to play the game by that time. I knew that like dodge punch, don't press too hard. It's one of those things that's like I wanted that to be so much better, but it was just kind of mediocre, kind of felt a little bit flat. Of course, what's going on is cool. I love it. I think this game has so many cool twists and turns and stuff like that, but I really do wish that the boss fights had been on the same level as those twists and turns that were happening inside the game. Like I said, even the ending boss fight with Venom has like 5 stages in it, and 3 out of the 5 stages play exactly the same as any other fight in the game. It's just kind of, just kind of like, whatever. Some story beats to talk about. Obviously, Craven coming to New York to hunt the different villains of New York is of course a really good idea. It does open the door for plenty of villains to show their face and be involved in the story. They actually killed off some main characters in this one. They killed off Scorpion on screen. They killed off Vulture off screen. I'm pretty sure they killed off Shocker as well. There's a bunch of empty cages with their faces on them. So there was some actual character deaths in here that weren't that hard hitting per se, but they worked in the moment. There was also what am I thinking of? Oh, the fight with Martin Lee or Mr. Negative in this game, leagues better than the fight with him in the first game. Like even though I didn't mind the fight with him in Spider-Man 1, the Martin Lee fight in Spider-Man 2 is so good. Like I think actually that kind of ties Craven for the boss fight of the game. And that one's between Miles and Mr. Negative. And I like Martin Lee's new appearance. He's got like this beard and the mustache and the tied up hair, I think they did a really good job with him in this game, and I think that this game wasn't so much about like, oh, beat up all the villains and win. It was more so about giving villains a second chance, or giving people who are bad a second chance. And one of the character arcs in this game is with Martin Lee and Miles, and of course Martin Lee killed Miles' father, so there's a story arc for Miles forgiving Martin Lee, and there's an arc for Martin Lee realizing what he did was wrong, or was worse than he thought, and trying to atone for it in some ways. And that's a theme throughout the whole game where, Dr. Connors, he's reformed and he's living on his own and he's missing his family, and he's working with Norman Osborn to help his son and all that stuff. So there's a lot of like character arcs in this game that work out really well. I think that most of them work pretty well. The only one that I didn't think was as strong was Wrath or Wraith, who is the main police officer from the last game that you talked to throughout that game. Of course, at the end of the final DLC, she goes rogue because she's done with the system, and I felt like her arc wasn't as strong as everyone else's. I feel like that side mission trail went a bit cold, especially after like Peter and her had like a huge falling out, and then they just are working together in the next mission again. It's just like, okay, maybe we could have fleshed this out a little bit more. Maybe save this for an entire side DLC. I don't know. Um, I like all the different factions that are in the game, just like the first one. With Sable, the demons, and the regular thugs, there's a good amount of mix of different factions in this one, including the regular thugs. And there's these like cultists who use fire to burn things, which are they're really cool. I think I like them the best out of all the characters to fight. Later on, there's symbiote versions of of like people get like turned into venom type creatures, and each color kind of has a distinct move set. And I felt like they were pretty cool, pretty tanky at first, but once you get around to it, you start fighting them pretty well. Yeah, I like all the different factions and all the different crimes that show up. I think that they put a lot more variance into what crimes show up on the map. The one thing that I will say is they took away some of like the more creative elements of the crimes, where you don't actually have to do the crimes, but if you do them, sometimes like they use similar things from the last game, like stopping a car or something like that, and they kind of trim those down to be like one quick button press and then you're done. And then there's these parts where you have to take people back to an ambulance, which just serves to elongate the side content for some reason. It was fun at the beginning when you're taking J. Jonah Jameson to an ambulance, but it shows up a little bit too often with these side crimes, and it's just more of an annoyance than anything else to take. Because sometimes these ambulances are like 1,000 miles away, and it's like, what? Why? So yeah. Other than that, the ending of the game really strong, really good ending. Like I said before, the boss fight with Venom maybe leaves a little bit to be desired, but the story elements going on are very good. At the end of it all, Harry is like comatose in a coma. Comatose in a coma? In a coma. Let's just say he's in a coma. And you kind of pick up on it throughout the game, but Norman is wearing a ton of green, whether it's a tie, a suit, pants, shoes. Or if there's something glowing green around him, it definitely is hinting at the Green Goblin coming in the next game. And the reason that I say that 100% right now is because of the final, like not the final, but there's two after credit scenes. One of them is way more important than the other one. One of them is just like Peter and Miles and the family having dinner or whatever, breakfast or whatever. The other one is Norman, obviously very distraught over Spider-Man, having put his son into a coma. And obviously he doesn't know exactly what happened. He didn't know that Harry wanted that to happen, right? Harry actually wanted Peter to kill him at one point. And of course, Norman, he lost his wife and he almost lost his son, then his son came back. So it's a lot of trauma to go through for him. So his character is a bit different from the Green Goblin that you know and love from the other Spider-Man movies or from comic books. So instead of just kind of getting his powers through a experiment gone wrong and having this dual personality, it seems like his hate for Spider-Man is already kind of developed, and he's going to work with Otto Octavius in the next game to take down Spider-Man, or try and take down Spider-Man. Will we see the Hobgoblin? I don't think so, but I mean, if there's a will, there's a way, I guess. But as of right now, we kind of confirm that Green Goblin is coming back in the next game, along with Otto. He's going to come back, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So there's just two strong indications there at the end of the game that they're going to form some sort of alliance, but maybe it's going to be a shifty alliance. But yeah, because Norman, like at the end of the game, Norman's wearing like an entirely green suit. So if he doesn't become Green Goblin, I would think that maybe he uses the, whatever on Harry instead of himself and turns Harry into the Green Goblin, or the Hobgoblin, as he would be called. But we will see. We shall see, okay? Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. The end of the game was definitely worth the lackluster fight with Venom. So even there was cool things that happened during the Venom fight. He grew wings, he did all this stuff. I think there was some cool stuff there. But as I said before, the fight itself, it left me a little bit desiring a little bit more, a little bit more. So I know there's a lot of like little nitpicks in here and also some bigger things that I talked about, but I will say for the most part, Spider-Man 2 is a great experience. If you haven't played it yet, if you haven't gone around to playing it yet, I don't know why you'd be listening to this one, but two, definitely get around to doing that. And it's not like the platinum trophy is that much trouble in this game. It's actually a relatively easy one to accomplish. Just takes a little bit of time doing the side content and stuff. And people who blitz through the main story and then do the side content, I think they're going to have a little bit of a tougher time with it because just like with the first game, if you wait to do all of the side content until after the main story is over, it's just going to be a lot of cleanup. I think the game does a really good job of keeping the side content flowing along with the main missions, and you can kind of do the side content at leisurely while very naturally, I will say, while doing the main story stuff. And I think that you get a lesser experience if you don't do as much of the side content as you can before the end of the game. I think that obviously you don't have to do all the side content, but of course, doing a lot of the side content naturally while progressing the main story is going to give you, I think, a better overall experience at the end of the day. The way that I did it personally was by the time that the symbiote had taken over New York, I had pretty much done all of the other side content that was leading up to that mission where that happened. And then once the symbiote like hearts started appearing, I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna leave these for, you know, whenever. And I actually did the right thing by doing a couple of them and then leaving them for later, because then you get the anti venom suit and you get all these new abilities for Peter that made those things much easier. And of course, you get the upgraded venom powers for Miles as well, which makes them easier too. So by the time that the game was wrapping up, before the final fight with Venom, I decided to go and do the rest of those to wrap those up neat and cleanly, nice and cleanly. And then at the end of the game, I was happy to see that the map was pretty much done, except for a couple of miscellaneous things that I had missed on my way. So, and those miscellaneous things were just like miscellaneous trophies. I don't mean like things in like side quest content or anything like that. I mean like I had a couple of trophies to clean up, and there was one more EMF thing to do, which was pretty cool. But I think that this game definitely strives to be great, and it is great, and it definitely goes above and beyond what the other games set up, and I think that even though it struggles in a few locations, I think for the most part it's a great experience, one that is going to be remembered for a long time. And if this trilogy does complete with a Green Goblin storyline for the third game, I'm there for it. I'm all there for it, and we'll see what other surprises they decide to do for this third game. I just think that in general, most people, including myself, are just going to be excited to see what happens next. And I know that they're probably going to be doing a couple of DLCs. Of course, Carnage is going to come in there for a DLC. It looks like Chameleon's going to have his own DLC. Maybe there's going to be an Into the Spider-Verse DLC. We'll see. But yeah, it's. I think we have a good amount of content that's going to be coming to the game in the near future, and I think that the game is going to just be a very replayable, fun time. Kind of like the first game in Miles Morales, those are very replayable, very good times. Even if you're doing it for the third or fourth time, I feel like you can still find enjoyment out of just the combat and the swinging in general. So, yeah, and this one, it has a really good story. Like even the Mary Jane parts were really good. Like after the first one, like she became less of a stealth character and more of like an action-packed character, which was really cool. She got like this gun that she could stun people with, and then she could wrap people up with the web shooters and stuff like that. I thought that they really evolved her character a lot and made her sections worth playing. And even though I didn't mind them in the first game, I will say that the Mary Jane and the Miles sections in the first game left a lot to be desired for sure. And they kind of filled that gap in the second game here. I think so. There's probably something that I missed while I was talking, but I will leave it at that because this is already a long enough as it is. So the final score that I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 for right now is a 4.5 out of 5. Could have been a 5 out of 5, but as I mentioned before, I felt like the boss fights weren't as good. There was some side content that didn't need to be cliffhangers. We could have just had some actual endings to them. And of course, it was a little buggy here and there. I will say, I definitely brought me out of the game when all of a sudden my character can't move or whatever. So I definitely hold that against it a little bit. But it's not as strong as Jedi Survivor because of the fact that Jedi Survivor had glitches and stuff all the way through it, and it definitely hampered the experience all the way through. Whereas Spider-Man 2, it was really like once every like 6 hours or so. I think I have a total of 20 hours playing the game in general. So like every like 6 or so hours, I had a glitch or something like that where I had to restart. So it wasn't as bad as other games that have come out this year, but I will still deduct some points, partial points for that, because it's really inexcusable at this point from a AAA company to be putting out a game that has so many glitches and stuff in it. I mean, it's much more inexcusable for something like Jedi Survivor or Redfall, but I still got to hold all games up to the same grading criteria that I do, and Spider-Man 2 is no exception. So a 4.5 is still a really good game. Still a really good game. Obviously, I am ignoring some of the problems that I have with it to because I just enjoyed it so much. But yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. It's there. It's worth playing for sure. It's better than the Miles Morales and Spider-Man 1. I think Spider-Man 1 is like a 4.5 as well, but for different reasons. Miles Morales is like a 4 out of 5. So this one definitely rises above. And unlike IGN, I stay consistent with my ratings. Thank you for listening, and this has been the final review.